This illegal modification must be removed immediately, or you will face further fines. Do you understand me?
I understand you're mistaken.
At 6:18 a.m. on May 3, 2024, I opened my front door and my stomach dropped because there was a shiny silver padlock hanging from my porch gate like I was some kind of criminal. The air was cold enough to bite my ears. A motion light kept blinking on and off, washing the wet concrete in hard white flashes. I could smell fresh asphalt from the road crew down the block, mixed with my burnt coffee drifting out behind me. I rattled the gate anyway, just to be sure. Metal screamed against metal. The lock didn't budge. A little orange notice was zip-tied right at eye level, flapping in the wind like it was proud of itself. I stood there in my socks, staring at the words access restricted by order of the HOA, and all I could think was, so you can just lock somebody in now? This is the story of HOA Padlocked my porch gate for 48 hours over a $15 fine. Then I filed the title search. The fine was for a porch decor violation, which was HOA speak for my 2 potted plants sitting too close to the walkway. 2 plants. I paid my dues early every month, I picked up trash that wasn't mine, and I still got treated like a problem because my neighbor, Linda, loved being the neighborhood hall monitor. She was the board secretary, the queen of clipboards, and the kind of person who smiled while threatening you. The notice said the padlock would stay for 48 hours, plus an extra processing fee if I touched it. I had to leave for work at 7:30 a.m., and the gate was my normal path to my car. Instead, I had to squeeze around the side fence, scrape my arm on a nail, and step in a puddle deep enough to soak my shoe. Somewhere across the street, Linda's blinds moved like she was watching a nature show. By 8:05 a.m., I was on the phone with the HOA manager, trying to use my calm voice. I explained that locking my gate trapped packages, blocked my porch, and made me feel unsafe. The manager hummed like I was reading a grocery list. Then he said, very soft, very bored decision. Pay the fine and wait the 48 hours. I said I already paid the $15 last month, and I had the confirmation email. He sighed and told me to email it again. So I did. I also walked over to Linda's house because I'm not a ghost, I'm a person, and I wanted to handle it face to face. She opened the door 2 inches and kept her chain latched. Her perfume hit me like a wall. She looked past my shoulder like she hoped a camera crew was hiding behind me. She said, "You people never follow rules." I said, "You people?" She blinked like she didn't know what she just said, then added, "It's just policy." When I asked her who approved padlocking my gate, her eyes got shiny with pride. The board did. And it's not your gate. It's HOA property. That line did it. Not your gate. I felt heat crawl up my neck, the kind that makes you want to say something dumb. Instead, I swallowed it. I told myself, proper channels only. I went home, sat at my kitchen table, and made a promise that I would not touch the lock, not yell at her, and not teach her a lesson the way my group chat begged me to. I would out-paperwork her. I pulled up every email, every letter, every picture of my porch gate since I moved in. I lined up photos, emails, and call logs in a binder. I started writing notes like a detective in a cheap movie. Timeline item 1 April 5th at 4:27 a.m. false trespass call. Because yes, that happened too. A month earlier, cops showed up at dawn because someone said I was breaking into my own house. The officer apologized when I showed my ID and keys, but the shame stuck to me like wet clothes. I wrote down every weird moment after that, because I finally understood something simple: patterns of false reports can be prosecuted. On May 4, 2024, at 9:00 a.m., I went to the county records office with a folder and the kind of grin you wear right before a storm. I asked for a title search on my lot in the common area around my porch. The clerk didn't care about my drama, which I respected. She just slid forms toward me and pointed at the fee. I paid it, got my receipt, and asked for any easements, covenants, or plats tied to my address. 2 days later, on May 6, 2024, the file landed with 63 pages. I read every one like it was a thriller novel. And there it was, in plain lines and boring stamps: the porch gate and the small fence strip were deeded as my limited common element, meaning the HOA could set guidelines, but they did not own it, and they sure didn't have the right to lock me out of it. The plat map even showed the exact hinge point and measurements. Linda had been saying HOA property like a spell, hoping nobody would check. I also found something even sweeter. The HOA had never recorded the enforcement policy they bragged about. It was just a Word document they emailed around like it was law. That night, I emailed the HOA manager a short message with the county stamp attached, plus the plat map highlighted in bright yellow. I also sent a certified letter to the board, because paper trails are my love language now. I didn't threaten anybody. I didn't call names. I simply asked them to remove the padlock immediately, correct their records, and confirm in writing that they would stop restricting access to deeded areas. Then I did one more lawful thing that made my hands shake. I filed a complaint with the city's code office and requested a safety review, because locking a gate that blocks a normal path can become a fire hazard fast. By the next afternoon, neighbors were already whispering. One guy from 2 doors down caught the lock on video and posted it in our community group with the caption, "HOA really padlocked someone's porch?" Comments exploded. People who never spoke to me before started sending thumbs up emojis like we were old friends. Someone wrote, "Linda thinks she's the mayor." Another wrote, "Not the padlock of shame." I laughed so hard I snorted, which was humiliating, but honestly, I needed it. On May 7, 2024, at 2:10 p.m., a city inspector walked up my driveway in a bright vest while Linda watched from her window like a hawk with a mortgage. The inspector tugged the gate, looked at the lock, and frowned. He asked who placed it. I pointed toward the HOA notice still zip-tied there. He nodded slowly, took photos, and said, "This blocks an exit path. If this is part of your deeded area, they can't restrict it like this." Then he did the funniest thing I've ever seen a serious person do. He walked across the street and knocked on Linda's door. I couldn't hear everything, but I heard her voice rise like a kettle. Then I heard the inspector, calm as a metronome, tell her to remove the lock immediately or face a citation. Linda tried to argue, waving her hands like she was conducting an orchestra. The inspector asked for proof it was HOA property. She didn't have it. She had feelings. Feelings don't show up in county records. 10 minutes later, the lock came off. Linda had to do it herself. She stood there with a key ring shaking, cheeks bright red, while 2 teenagers across the street filmed like it was a concert. The board called an emergency meeting 2 days later, and for once, the room was packed. People showed up with popcorn energy. I walked in with my binder and my 63 pages, and I kept my voice steady even though my heart was doing jumping jacks. The HOA president tried to sound firm, but his eyes kept flicking to the inspector's citation notice and the emails people were forwarding around. I laid the plat map on the table and slid it forward like a winning card. I explained, simply, that they could fine me for pots if they wanted, but they could not lock my deeded access, and now the city agreed. The manager cleared his throat and admitted they misinterpreted the property boundaries. Linda tried to speak, but the room was done with her. A neighbor stood up and asked how many complaints had been filed because of her. Someone else said they counted 7 in the last year, and everybody murmured like a wave. The president announced that the board would review enforcement procedures, which is fancy talk for "we got caught." Linda resigned the next week for personal reasons. Sure. After that, my porch felt like mine again. No padlock. No surprise notes. Just morning sun and the smell of my coffee, finally peaceful. The sweetest part wasn't even watching Linda lose her power. It was the tiny warmth that came after. One evening, the neighbor who filmed it brought me a small spare plant and said, "For your dangerous porch decor." We both laughed, and it didn't feel bitter anymore. It felt like the whole street exhaled at once, like we all remembered we were neighbors, not suspects. And every time I walk through that gate now, I still smile, because paperwork beat ego, and I didn't have to break a single rule to do it. Please follow for more HOA showdowns like this. Do you think she got what she deserves? Comment below.